Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So it sounds like I have to hit the gavel a little bit harder for Scully. No. I know. Usually. Yep. Just a reminder for board members, we got new mics, so yep. Red means you're muted. It's intentional. All right. So can any changes to the agenda? All right. No changes. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
So moved by Valella. Second by Bo. To approve the agenda as presented, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion pass. Moving on to some future events. Please check the district calendar and resource guide of the district website for a complete list of monthly events. Tuesday, September 26, 2023, school board work session at 6 p.m. And Tuesday, October 10th, 2023, school board regular meeting, 7 p.m. with communication to the board and administration at 6:45. Moving on to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Strobel.
Second.
Second by Scully. To approve the following items in the consent agenda. Minutes of the August 15, 2023 regular school board meeting. August 29, 2023 school board work session. Bills paid for July 2023 in the amount of $5,936,595 and personnel items. All right, any discussion? Yeah. Not on consent? Okay, thank you for that correction. Yeah. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, consent passes. All right, moving on to discussion, reports, and information items. 2023-2024 District Operational Plan. The District Operational Plan describes improvement projects within each district's strategic anchor, engaged, enthusiastic learners, effective operations, and communications and connections. So the DOP and update meets the world's best workforce plan and reporting requirements. So we'll start with Dr. Opron and Dr. Jeff Cronenberg.
All right, so I'm going to kick it off and have the opportunity to hear from a number of other people. I had to turn on my mic. As you know, we had the opportunity in our meeting in August and then again at the work session to talk about our district operational plan. And it's something we talk about throughout the year. We talked about this throughout the spring last year as we updated that. But district operational plan is driven by our strategic plan, which is the board document that really is the roadmap for the work that we do in our district, with that primary focus on being a world-class learning community that's aligned around fostering personalized learning experiences for each of the learners throughout our system. So we want each of them to have that sense of belonging, sense of value. And in a nutshell, we really talk about wanting to know each child by name, strength, interest, and need. In order to make that vision come to life, what we do is we have a district operational plan that we work on. And as you know, we update you on that throughout the year. Well, it's an annual plan. It's something that really has a long-term focus. So each year we have quarterly meetings as a management team where we look at this district operational plan. And when we have those, we look 5 years out at emerging influences, look at where we're going. And then we come back and say, so what are the steps we really need to take in the next year? And then that's something we bring to you as a board at retreats and at work sessions and meetings and talk about that. And then, as you know, last spring we first shared our 2023-24 district operational plan. You heard about this at our August meeting. And this evening we're going to provide a brief overview of our results from last year that, as we looked at those, really drove the work that you see here in the projects that we have in place. And then we're going to really focus on 3 key projects within our district operational plan that are really focused on making a significant impact on improving those results. And again, you had that opportunity to hear about that just a couple of weeks ago, in depth, like for 90 minutes to 2 hours, lots of questions. We won't take that much time this evening. This will be more high-level overview for you. And part of that is meeting those requirements for the Minnesota Department of Education and having a public meeting where we provide an overview of that World's Best Workforce Plan. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Hope Ron. And there you go.
There we go. All right. Good evening. Thanks, Jeff, for that intro. And before we dive into those student learning results that Jeff just mentioned, we want to start by anchoring to our vision goals, which are in front of you on the slide. These are vision goals for our graduates, which are also aligned to our World's Best Workforce goals. And ultimately, we want to be on a positive trajectory each year towards students graduating and seeing our students prepared for their next steps beyond Spring Lake Park High School and Spring Lake Park schools. We want to see that students have discovered a spark in their interest area or areas. And we have that ultimate goal of each of our students earning 12 college credits by the end of 12th grade. So these vision goals drive our design, planning, and implementation work within our district operational plan, and then that's also mirrored in our school improvement and innovation plans. At our August work session, like Jeff said, we took quite a bit of time to talk through some of these lingering impacts of the pandemic on our student learning results. While we will not get quite that in-depth at tonight's meeting, I do want to recap that discussion again for the board and for our community members that might be watching. So when we talk about our standardized test results, we really only have 1 year of baseline data due to the varied administration of and participation in our standardized tests over the 3 years of the pandemic. What that means is we just don't have enough longitudinal data to look at growth of cohorts of students over time, like our fourth graders 2 years ago, to our fifth graders last year, to our sixth graders this year. That's what I mean by those cohorts over time. We'll be able to do that more as we get back on track with administration and participation, which we did last year, we will this year, and then over the next few years. So next, the pandemic had significant impact on our student attendance, not only in Spring Lake Park schools, but in other districts in Minnesota, in the metro across the state, and really schools across the nation. We've all seen a decline in student attendance rates since the pandemic. While we are working extremely hard to get our student attendance rates back up to pre-pandemic, the reality is that there was a lot of missed instruction for our students as students and teachers were out with illness throughout the pandemic. The perspective of families on student attendance has also shifted just a little since the pandemic. We talked about that at the work session as families became used to kids being at home, doing some work here and there. And so as we continue this work, it clearly is an emphasis. It remains a district operational plan project for year 2 as we focus on student attendance. Next, there have also been a series of studies released across the nation by primarily assessment companies as well as other organizations about the lingering impact on student academic progress and the amount of time needed for students to recoup the learning that was missed during the pandemic. We shared the results of one study at the work session by NWEA, Northwest Evaluation Association, which is the parent company of the standardized assessment tests that we use here, the measures of academic progress. Parents might commonly know those as MAP. We often call them MAP assessments, okay? The bottom line from all of the studies is that students are demonstrating lower achievement than pre-pandemic in reading and math, and the time it takes for our students to make up for that missed learning is also longer than pre-pandemic. And again, we went into more details, but those are really the two main takeaways. It's probably not shocking to people, but it's something that I just want to bring up, that there are studies across the nation that are looking at this as well. And then finally, we know that the timing of the pandemic has impacted some student cohorts differently than others, right? And we have to think about that. We spent quite a bit of time again at the work session. And what we did at that point was we worked our way backwards, if you remember, for each cohort of students at 4th, 8th grade, and then seniors, like looking at where were they at in the pandemic for things like their freshman year of high school, which is one of our biggest indicators for graduation rate, okay? Where were they when we were working on those foundational early literacy reading skills? How does that impact their results now as 4th graders? So while we won't do that backwards mapping for every class like we did at the work session, I do want to point that out. This is something that we need to consider as we continue in the presentation here. So, moving into our student learning results, I want to just point out that we're going to focus tonight on what we call our portrait measures. And our portrait measures look at specific student learning results at key transition times in our system. In Spring Lake Park, that's at the end of 4th grade, at the end of 8th grade, and then upon graduation. And you can see on the left-hand column, our desired results for our grade 4 students include strong foundational reading and math skills, and we use several measures, right? We look at how students are progressing on their academic competencies and learning progressions in both language arts and math, not only at times of report cards, but also along the way. We look at student achievement within a targeted range on those measures of academic progress, those MAP standardized tests in reading and math. And then qualitatively, we really want kids to be enthusiastic about their learning as they start their time and career in Spring Lake Park schools. This enthusiasm is captured at least in part through what we call their learner profiles. By the time students reach 4th grade, we really want our students to take a more active role in contributing to that learner profile. Like Jeff said, what are my strengths as a learner? What are my needs as a learner? What interests and sparks do I have that I can connect to my learning, to deepen my learning, okay? So this past year, many of our 4th graders were actively involved in their learner profile. It had been created in prior years, but really working with their teachers to add information related to the areas of strength, needs, and interest, so that as our 4th graders transition to Westwood this fall, that would be updated for their teachers to work with them on. We also make sure on the right-hand column that we're monitoring progress along the way and not just waiting until the end of year results to see what kids learn. We never want to be surprised. We want to know where we're at so we can influence that along the way. At the elementary level, we do this in a few ways. We look at proficiency levels on the assessments within our core resources at elementary. These names should sound familiar to you at K4. It's Foundations in Wit and Wisdom, for our non-immersion school, and AREBA for our immersion school for language arts. And for math, it includes our core resource of Bridges. And we have assessments built in there that help us look along the way to see where kids are at and what they might need if we see any gaps in their learning. We also know that at the elementary level, the number of students who may be identified for targeted intervention may actually initially increase at grades K and 1 as we get to know them, as they start demonstrating where they're at with some of those foundational skills in reading and math. However, we expect to see those numbers start to decline then at grades 2, 3, and 4 as kids have additional time to revisit concepts, show their learning in multiple ways. So we want to track that along the way to make sure kids are making the accelerated progress they need to hit grade level benchmarks. As I mentioned earlier, student attendance continues to be a key indicator, so we have a team that works with families to develop personalized plans and targeted support for students who may be on the path toward chronic absenteeism and show gaps in their learning. So as we look at these indicators, what we know, and I won't repeat this for every grade level, but I want to start out here. We know that each student has what we refer to as a jagged profile, okay? We're all individuals. What this means is that we don't expect every child at a certain grade level to hit the same level in proficiency on the exact same day in the exact same time, okay? So that's why it's important that we look at multiple indicators all the way throughout the year and at the end of the year, because we know that kids develop differently in different areas. What we want to be sure is we know where they're at and we can help guide their next steps in whatever their needs might be. As we move into our grade 4 measures of academic progress reading results, our 4th graders in the spring of 2023 are current 5th graders right now in the fall. You can see that that dotted line across the middle, about 53% fell within that targeted proficiency range on our MAP reading assessment. And these results for grade 4 reading are relatively flat as compared to our grade 4 students last year in the spring of 2022. Again, just as we think about where they were during the pandemic, these grade 4 students were in grade 1 when we had our spring shutdown due to the pandemic. And this really is a critical time for students to start transferring those more explicit foundational reading skills into the reading process and reading fluently. And remember, then when they were in grade 2, they were in and out of numerous learning models that year. Grade 3, we continued to still have, even though we were back on site, high absences among students and teachers. And so as I mentioned before, the impact of the pandemic on this cohort hits a little bit harder than on other cohorts of students, okay? When we disaggregate our data for this measure, which we do for all of our measures, this is a standard practice when we look at our student results, we find several predictive factors that provide insight into how we can design a response to meet student needs. We have a lot of unique and varied needs of students, and that's our work. What are those needs? How do we develop a response to that? Some of those factors that you can see there are the number of years students are enrolled in Spring Lake Park schools. What we see time and again is the longer students are in Spring Lake Park schools, the higher their achievement, okay? Students who qualify for additional supports, systemic supports in following areas, English learners, special education, and or students who qualify for free and reduced price lunch, those continue to be predictors of lower achievement. So again, how do we take that and not just admire that, but think about what actions might we take to help accelerate the learning so that those no longer become predictors, okay? When we look at our grade 4 math results on the MAP assessment, you can see that 61% of our fourth graders fell within the targeted proficiency range. Again, when we look at our disaggregated data, what I want to point out here is that some of our student groups made more gains in math than in previous years and compared to the metro and state. So this is a case where in SLP, our student learning results didn't follow the trend that those national studies are saying with elementary math. And our teachers work real hard on their pedagogy within math and that resource at elementary to make sure kids have solid conceptual understanding of math, in addition to just being able to apply a formula, right, for math. And I think that's paying off. We're seeing some things to celebrate with that. As we move into our portrait of an 8th grader, that second key transition time, our primary goal is that students, again, who have been in Spring Lake Park for 4 or more years, demonstrate high school readiness. It doesn't mean that we don't expect that for the kids who have been here less than 4 years, but we know that they might have some additional needs not being in our system. So we want to make sure that they're either ready for high school or we have a real specific personalized plan toward high school readiness. So you'll see on the left again, our desired results for grade 8. Students are passing each of their core courses throughout their time at Westwood. Similar to grade 4, we want to see achievement on that MAP assessment within that targeted range. And we want all of our 8th graders to enter high school with an annual learner map, which means they have their grade 9 courses sketched out, and an initial draft of what we call that 4+ learner map. So that's not only just their 9th grade courses, but what are their initial thoughts about all of their courses, all 4 years of high school, and that next step after high school. So we start working with kids on that at grade 7 and 8. So that's developed at 8th grade. And we have really ramped up our time and connections with our grade 8 students over the last number of years so that each student who has been in SLP has that developed prior to walking in the door of the high school. And when we have kids move into SLP, we work quickly as they enter in that 9th grade year to get those kids up and running as well. Monitoring progress on the right for grade 8, you'll see again, students demonstrating proficiency on those course formative assessments. Those might be performance assessments or assessments within the resources. We look at the number of students needing kind of what we've called those double dose courses in the past. So they might be in regular grade 7 language arts and have another hour of language arts, again, to fill in some of those gaps over the prior years. And then at grades 5 and 6, the students who are receiving some additional targeted intervention. Again, we track those numbers. Are we seeing kids accelerate toward grade level? And then we finally we look to see if students are exhibiting what we call behaviors conducive to an environment of learning. That can look and sound all sorts of different ways. We take time at the beginning of the year to work with our kids about what does that look like and sound like from class to class. What's common? What are some differences between classes around that? Grade level teams meet regularly, at least once a month, to talk about all students in the grade level for this particular metric, and to identify students who may need extra support as we look at their social, emotional, behavioral growth and development. As we move into our MAP results for grade 8, you'll see in reading, we had 58% of our grade 8 students fall within the targeted proficiency range. While this is a small drop in proficiency compared to our 8th graders in the spring of 2022, it is similar to the results of the other standardized measures that are used across the state that we can compare to, and it aligns with the results of the national studies I mentioned earlier. And you can again see some of those predictive factors that show up within our disaggregated data for MAP reading at grade 8. When we look at MAP math, we had 54% of our grade 8 students fall within the targeted proficiency range. These results are very similar, very flat, like the same of what we saw for our 8th graders in the spring of 2022. Again, we don't have enough years of data to compare 6th to 7th to 8th with the same group of kids. So our 8th graders in the spring of 2023, we talked about it again at the work session. Just as a reminder, we're impacted by the pandemic each year they were at Westwood, right? In 5th grade, they had spring shutdown. In 6th grade, they were in and out of learning models. In 7th grade, we had those high teacher and student absences still. And last year in 8th grade, we were just kind of transitioning back to like what might be considered typical now, okay? And something that we've talked about, we know middle school years are tough enough on their own, and then adding this on top of it. So it's not an excuse, it's just something to keep in mind as we think about the results, and then what we do, the action steps we take from there. Okay, let's talk about our portrait of a graduate. Our desired results for our SLP graduates are completely aligned with those vision goals I started this entire presentation out with. Okay, it starts with graduating. Students graduating in 4 years, or if not graduating in 4 years, have a very personalized plan toward graduation. And so for our class of 2022, and I remember when we're talking about portraits of graduates, we're always a year delayed because of grad rate results being delayed in coming out, right? So for the class of 2022, 96.4% of our students either graduated within 4 years or have been working on their identified personalized plan that has led to graduation, okay? This is an increase from that grad rate of graduated or continued from the class of 2021, which including those students who had that personalized plan working toward it, we were at 94%. So we've been seeing that positive trajectory. As we look at our initial numbers for the class of 2023, remember, we don't have that yet because kids have been working all throughout the summer and into the start of the school year to hit that graduation goal. We're seeing that percentage drop a little bit from the class of 2022. Again, thinking about where those kids were at in the pandemic, they ended their 9th grade year in the shutdown at home, and 9th grade is such a critical year to be on track for graduation. So again, we have all of those kids tracked, we're following up, and we're working with them, continuing to work with them toward that plan. All right, we also want to make sure we see a positive trajectory in the number of students who are leaving SLP with an identified next step, as well as college credits and or work or internship experiences. And ideally, again, we want to see students earning 12 college credits by the end of 12th grade, or again, what we call that 12 by 12. Of course, when you look at the right-hand column, we want to monitor progress along the way. Some explicit ways we do that, we look very deeply at our 9th grade students because the research world calls that freshman on track data, and that's one of the biggest indicators toward graduation. So we do a lot with that 9th grade class. We also review those annual and 4+ year learner maps to monitor each student's path toward graduation. Did they miss a credit? Okay, so if they did, how do we adjust their 4+ year map to make sure we're getting that in? And then we also look frequently at our at-risk indicators, things again like attendance, formative assessments, and then develop those targeted learner maps so that we can get kids back on track real time without pausing or waiting. As we look at the results, I just wanted to put our portrait measure of our, again, class of 2022 earning at least 1 college level credit during their time in Spring Lake Park. So you can see that 70% of our students in the class of 2022 earned at least 1 college credit while they were in high school. It's very comparable compared to our class of 2021, even despite the pandemic. And when we look at our 12 by 12 goal, overall, we had 39% of the class of 2022 earning 12 college credits by the end of 12th grade. This is, as we talked about, fewer than the class of 2021, a lower percentage, but again, we need to consider that our class of 2022 was most impacted by the pandemic during their junior and senior years, which are the 2 years of their high school career where they layer on more of those classes to earn 12 credits by 12th grade. The other point that we talked about that I want to bring up is during the pandemic, we did have a good number of students transfer into Spring Lake Park schools during that time who came more credit deficient through the pandemic from their prior high school or prior district. So our priority for those students really has been, let's make those personalized plans to recoup some of those credits that you missed from whatever school you're joining us from. And that has been a priority, and that's okay. We want to get those kids to graduation to pursue their next steps, okay? We're currently working on our initial analysis for the class of 2023. I know it seems like we should have it because they walked through graduation, but we work with students all throughout the summer and into the fall. So we'll have preliminary results on those portrait measures that we just reported on in the near future. Okay, at this point, we want to shift from sharing student learning results to our next actions. Jeff referenced this earlier, the projects within our district operational plan that we think has direct impact on our student learning results. Last month at our public meeting, Dr. Ronneberg, Dr. Melissa Olson, our Director of Curriculum and Instructional Practices, and Erica Teibel, our Executive Director for Communications, provided an overview of each project in the district operational plan. You can see a very minute version on the screen in front of you there. And each of these projects have impact on student learning, right? They're driven by our student learning results. Tonight, though, we really want to highlight 3 projects that probably have a bit of a more direct connection that people can identify with. So first, our district operational plan. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Before you jump in, can you go back to the
Yeah.
previous slide? Just like sure, I met with a community member earlier today. For example, you can pull this up online. So if anybody who's watching online wants to go to our website, the strategic plan, we can go to the district operational plan and they can see. They don't have to try to read the small print that's on the screen right now, but they'll be able to see the
there is
one-page view of our district operational plan, and then each project lists all of the key achievement points for the year that we're trying to accomplish with them. And that's all available online, and they can also look backwards and see what happened last year, and because we provide updates about what we accomplished then as well. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, first project. Last month, Dr. Olson provided a really in-depth look at the milestones within this project. So I do not want to repeat that entire presentation, but just to give a high-level brief overview of what's happening. In this project of deepening innovative and personalized learning, it really begins with our promise, as Jeff said earlier, to know each student by name, strength, interest, and need. And hopefully you heard that come out even as we talked about the measures and monitoring progress along the way. This leads to the development of personalized, authentic learning experiences that extend beyond the 4 walls of a classroom, that allow students to not only acquire deep levels of learning for both academic content and those essential career and life skills, but also allows them to explore their interests and sparks through their learning experiences. The achievement points that Melissa went through last month are listed here. In summary, after spending several years laying groundwork for this work, we are heavy into implementation during the 23-24 school year. Okay, this includes looking at tracking our competencies and those learning progressions in a different way and sharing that information with parents so we're all on the same page about knowing where kids are at and their next steps in learning. It includes giving our learner profiles a bit of a facelift and making them more easily accessible for everyone involved. It also works to ensure that each student has that 4+ year learner map that we just talked about that tracks their next steps after high school and adjusts along the way based on what we see as strengths and needs. And always, we want to continue our support of teachers in designing student work and learning experiences that leads to both high student engagement and deep levels of learning. The second project that we're going to highlight is in our operational plan, the project of continuing to strengthen student supports and interventions. And gratefully for all involved, I will turn this presentation over to Kayleen Sanvan Marinello, who is our Director of Special Education and Student Services, and she will talk you through this project.
Good evening. Nice to see you all tonight. Ooh, I never get to adjust microphones up, so that's exciting for me. Hi, good evening. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our continuing to strengthen student supports and interventions, and walk you through a little bit starting with the why. So as you know, over the past 2 years, we have been taking steps to strengthen this continuum of supports and interventions, right? And we want to ensure that each student is getting what they need academically, socially, emotionally, and or behaviorally, right? Sometimes kids have all those needs, sometimes they have a couple of those needs. So as we're doing this, really this year, it's about scaling that work and making sure we have deep implementation. Two of our main resources are Accelerating Student Learning Framework and our playbook for creating a learner-centered environment, which Hope talked to you about in depth at the work session. All right, so I'm going to give you a little high-level overview of where we're at right now, just to take you through each of these key achievement points. So when we think about supporting and monitoring our implementation of our continuum of supports and interventions at each site, right now what we're working on is documenting what that looks like at each school. Each school has unique needs based on the needs of their student population. So what does that look like and sound like and feel like at each site? As we work through that, we also want to make sure that we are implementing these interventions and that they're aligned to student needs. We are also partnering with school leadership teams to design, implement, and evaluate the professional learning related to the Accelerating Student Learning Framework. So last year, we started this work with school leadership teams, and from there, school leadership teams started some of that professional learning, the key groups of staff that implement the framework with our students. This year, we're already off to a great start. We've already done professional learning with all our certified special education teachers, including new staff, as well as our academic specialists who are special education licensed. And now, as we move into the school year, we will work with each school building to develop a personalized professional learning plan for the remaining groups of folks that interact with the Accelerating Student Learning Framework. One of the things we did this summer was really fun. Kind of the things that really get my heart going is we did some refinements to the playbook for the student-centered, creating a student-centered learning environment. And what we did last year, since it was a new resource, we got some feedback from our teachers. We talked to the people who are using it. We collected some data on how it went. And then we pulled in a small team of teachers over the summer to look at those strategies in the playbook, make refinements. They added dozens of strategies, some of them related to forming positive relationships, de-escalation, being prompt and engaged in your learning, and creating those classrooms where each student is seen, they have a voice, and they see their experiences reflected in their community. Our next milestone is piloting alternatives to exclusionary practices, both at Westwood and at the high school. This program is affectionately called REV, which stands for Reflection, Empathy, and Value. And the idea is to provide an alternative to suspension for students in grades 7 through 12. In this program, it's designed to keep students academically engaged when they can't be at school, and then help them develop the lagging skills that they might have behaviorally and connect them with supports and services while doing some of that restorative work. How do we repair harm, and how do we re-enter positively? We are staffed, we're ready to receive students. We don't have any students to receive yet, which is great, but we are ready to go. And then this year we'll be doing a program evaluation to help us determine next steps, where we go from the pilot. And then we are also going to use some of those insights to help guide our work when we think of K-6 and some of those alternatives to exclusion. We also have made a choice on a common approach for our targeted learner map and how we're going to move forward. Last year, we piloted 2 separate ways to document the targeted and individualized interventions for our students. We have decided to move forward with the Power Apps option, and we're working on bringing that to the buildings right now. The exception to that is our center-based teachers. They will be using Looker Studio, which is through Google. And this is just aligned to the types of individualized programming that they do at that center-based special education level. And we are working with that application with Intermediate District 916. And then the final one is one that I hope that I see some of you at this upcoming year, is that we've developed a scope and sequence of family learning experiences to support caregivers in supporting their children with their social and emotional growth and development. We have 3 sessions scheduled for this year. The first session is around mental health awareness and coping skills. The second one is child development and when to seek support. And finally, the third session will be around positive relationships and working through difficult topics. We're also currently exploring offering a youth mental health first aid course, and that course is designed for parents, caregivers, community members that work with youth around how to do that basic mental health triage and to know when to seek greater help. Again, our first family session is October 11th, and it will be at Westwood in the Den at 6 p.m. So I hope to see some of you there, and whoever's watching, I hope to see many community members join us. 6 p.m., 6 to 7, and there will be refreshments. So, so how do we know we're doing well with our work? It really comes out in the student results, right? What does our learning look like? So each month, our school leadership teams will be looking at our student learning metrics, and we'll be checking in with them frequently to make sure that we're on the right path. And as we work through these milestones, we can make the adjustments that our students need us to keep making progress. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand it over to Erica now to talk about the district operational project of Deepen Family Communication and Connection.
Thanks, Kayleen.
Thanks, Kayleen. And the family sessions that Kayleen was just speaking about, those details are in all the newsletters tomorrow as well, so you can look for that there. I'm going to bring it home now by connecting school and home and deepening those partnerships with families through communication and connections. This is a continuation of a project that we did last year around enhancing partnerships. And I'll just tee that up with the why. We focused on and made a lot of great progress last school year in strengthening communication and connections between school and home. And our focus was really on supporting student engagement and success. If you'll recall, there were multiple strands to that project. And as you do any good work, you discover more good work to do. And so this year we are entering the year really focused in 4 primary areas and believing that we can strengthen further a few key areas. So the first is the next iteration really of each school's communication and connection plan, that year-long view. The second is really exploring and adding communication tools to our toolbox, and I'll talk about that. The third is well-supported implementation of competency-based learning at grades K-6, which Hope referenced earlier in the presentation, and then really implementing consistent and frequent rounding with families. So we really have 4 key achievement points in this project this year. The first is develop, monitor, and evaluate each school's year-long communication and connection plan. As we started the year, every school had a year-long view of communication and connection, and I just want to celebrate that because I think that's a great thing to start the year, kind of having, that mapped out for you rather than looking at communication as an episodic thing, to have it really be a holistic view for the year. We did bring principals together in June for a design session, so they worked all summer to really pull things together. And of course, this includes staff and family communication, and it includes things like our newsletters and other electronic communication, as well as curricular events, which our high school is going to kick off a curricular event tomorrow night. And Matthew Boucher would like to invite everyone to attend. And so our curricular events, as well as those conversations, and when we're going to have those and how teachers and families will connect around student progress. So we have good news to report there. The second achievement point, explore and make a decision about adding a 2-way texting tool to our communication toolbox. We have several systems that can text people one direction, but we do not currently have a tool, an enterprise tool, that's not a personal device, where you can text in real time back and forth. We did a pilot last year, not knowing how quickly we were going to move with this. We did do some analysis coming into the year, especially with some teachers who had piloted a couple of different tools last year. And we are in the process of bringing in a new tool called Talking Points. And we hope we're on track. We had our first implementation call today. We're on track to have that up and running with a small group in October. we're focused right away on our two primary areas that we're starting with are going to be attendance. So getting real-time information about why kids are absent, which is a need we have through our other project. And then second is immunizations and required immunizations. If you recall previous years, if kids don't have required immunizations by a certain date, they might be excluded from school. So we're going to work really hard to get kids their immunizations that are missing, and we're hosting a clinic for that, and we'll be using texting to help us get kids there. We like this tool because it does support 100+ different languages. So families can receive and send in their preferred language, and we can respond in English or whatever our preferred language is and have a conversation. And it also will give us that privacy, security, and support we need. The third achievement point is supporting communication of the competency-based learning. It just rolls right off my tongue. An effective implementation of the K-6 report card evolution. We gave everyone a couple of weeks to get settled into the new school year, but we'll be kicking off communication around that next week. And we're just starting with some basics. What is this? What am I going to see? Some examples from the classroom before moving into a second phase that will be around conferencing time, when teachers will really start to walk parents through, what does this mean for my child? I'm really excited for families to have a glimpse into all the information they're going to have an opportunity to know about their child's learning. And then finally, implement rounding with families using routine, multilingual SMS pulse check surveys through POSIP. Also a mouthful. We're partnering with POSIP, an organization to help us gather some family insight using primarily text messaging, although there's an email component as well. Families can choose to share their name or remain anonymous with this interaction. It's a couple of questions a month, three to four questions about once a month. And it will allow us to follow up directly with families if they do share their names with specific questions or needs. And we're also, we're asking people, if you want to share a shout out or positive thing, we would love to share that with our staff as well. This will kick off actually this Thursday for all families in the district. We're using our newsletters tomorrow to warn everybody that it's coming. Staff got their warning today. The first one will happen on Thursday, and then we should have results early next week that we can be digging into, and then sharing out those trends in next week's newsletters. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jeff for final thoughts.
Remember to turn that on again. What I enjoy about this presentation each year is the chance for you to hear from Hope, Erica, and Kayleen, just some of the great staff I have the opportunity to work with each day. So there's so much work that's gone behind those. It looks simple, like here's 4 or 5 simple key achievement points that we're working on, but there's a ton of work, broad level of involvement of teachers, staff, families, etc., in some of that design and planning. So I just want to thank them for the work that they've done. And again, just to summarize, the district operational plan meets those requirements for the world's best workforce, Department of Education. As I shared earlier, it can be found online. So anybody that wants to really dig into it and get a lot of information, it's right there, and they can always feel free to call and ask if they have any questions. So with that, any questions or comments from the board?
Mine's not a question.
Erica, I forgot, so this is super quick. The POSIP question, is it a yes, no? The first one is like a,
Yeah, it's like a how satisfied are you with your school today? It's yes, no, mostly, I think there's a third in there.
I remember we talked about it.
Yes. It should take people exactly 30 seconds to 1 minute.
Yeah, great.
My question is about POSIP as well, if you don't mind if I just follow up on that real quick. I think I know the answer to this, but for anybody who's watching who might have friends or family or neighbors, this is also an app where you can select your language, is that right?
Actually, there's nothing anyone needs to do. Whatever we have as your primary language in our campus, in our student information system, that's what you'll get it in. If you
Okay,
reply and say, if you reply in the text and you say, I don't wanna get this in Arabic, or I wanna get this in whatever language, we'll make adjustments on the back end.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
And that will be great information for us to have updated in our information system, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
And then-
reiterate, is it non?
It can be. The last of the 3 standard questions are, would you like to share your name? So you can say yes or no, yeah.
And then my thought on it is, as a parent, I think it's awesome because there's times I want to put a comment about something but I get distracted right after, so I could just reply quickly and have it out there and you know that there's something to follow up with I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a great option. Good job.
And Erica, real quick, what does POSIP stand for?
Positive gossip. Yeah.
Thanks. Other questions, comments? Hey.
I have a question.
Go for it.
So my question is, in terms of, Erica, in terms of follow-up with, sorry. So in terms of follow-up with these meetings regarding, parent feedback, are they gonna be, do you have a plan if they're gonna be like a group event or more of a one-on-one sort of situation?
Oh, for the POSIT?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So every building will get a report, it will probably arrive to us on Monday. And we'll be able to see trends and themes right away, and we'll communicate out those broader themes, for follow-up and what our plans are for follow-up as early as next week. So there's that component, that's more of a communicate to all. But if a family shares with us a direct, I have a question or a need or a concern, that will be flagged, and if they share their name, there'll be individual follow-up for that.
Great to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other comments? We actually have one for Kayleen. Yeah. I'm being difficult. No, I like the concept around around the program.
Yeah.
The one question I have, because I know those who hear about it are gonna have this question, is there a threshold, or what is the threshold of when the behavior rises to suspension? Because I think what we'd like to do is try to avoid suspending students because they miss out on the opportunities of learning. But is there guidelines, or is there a threshold of where we say, okay, this has to be a suspension?
Sure, yeah. So when we think about student discipline in general, each of those situations is individualized to the facts at hand, right? We consider them each individual incident, even when there's multiple students. So say there's something, easy to understand example is a fight, right? There's multiple students involved, but we make those determinations individually. There is a referral process to this program, and it's through that process where we consider those different factors, where we might say, given this unique set of circumstances, this might still be an at-home suspension. And so what does academic support look like if you're having that time at home? What does supports and services look like if you're spending that time at home versus in this program? So the idea might be, based on those unique circumstances, you might still have a suspension at home, but what we don't want to do is just send a kid home and not give them anything, because that isn't going to help them re-enter the community positively either. So there is a criteria, there's a referral process, and in particular, when it involves a student conflict between 2 students, we might make different choices for different kids. And we might also maybe do a combo platter of choices, right? Like maybe you spend some time at home, some time in the program, just based on those unique circumstances.
Okay. Yeah, I like the fact that if a student is on like a in-home suspension, that they're just not at home, but there is actual work that they must do. And is that work required to re-enter?
Yep, so what we
Okay.
do is part of that suspension process, I'll call it an out-of-school suspension for the sake of this conversation, just to be clear. When a student is out of school suspended, we have a process for gathering their work for them, depending on how long they're out of school, who checks in with them. And then there is a re-entry process. We have a readmission plan, and part of that plan is how are we going to provide supports and interventions to support your behavior moving forward. And that plan is developed with the parent, maybe a teacher or an administrator, and the student, counselor if it's a secondary level, If it's a student who has other support staff, they might be invited, and we work together. And then we determine who's gonna follow up on that plan and make sure that we're doing it, and the student's making progress.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Other comments? Right. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there are multiple sources of data around that. Some are around, what we would call key formative assessments. Your teachers might have used that at different levels, right? Like, here's the key formative, right? Like in Algebra 2 or something like that. And then they look at that amongst all the teachers that teach Algebra 2 and then say, who's got it? Who needs more practice? How are we gonna provide that? So those are the more like the quick along the way ones. And then the standardized tests we use just varies by grade, right? So MAP goes through grade 10, ACT, we use ACT at grade 11. And then by the time students are seniors, we're using different measures. We're looking at credits, graduation, and then next steps beyond that. There's not necessarily one standardized test we use at grade 12 for that. Does that answer? Yeah.
I just want to say real quick that usually we don't take questions from those attending, but we do have an additional student rep, so that's why we entertain the question. So just wanted to make that clarity. So, any other comments, questions?
Okay, I have one more question. So I guess this is more for Hope and Kayleen. So when it comes to dealing with chronic absenteeism, do we have forms, or like I guess I call like a pre-developed plan on how to tackle that issue with individual students, or is it more on just like a case-by-case basis?
Sure. I will try to be super concise because there's so many things involved in this, but really like that first step is knowing who is where. Like, where are the students when they're not with us? What are the reasons they're absent? And we kind of use that as our first look on what we do next. And then from there, we try to analyze why you're gone. Is it, wow, you're only gone from Kayleen's class, third hour. Is it the content? Is it Kayleen? We don't know. Let's talk to the student, right? So it kind of what it starts out as is what I'd call like a root cause analysis. Why are you gone? And then it turns into let's meet with you and your caregivers and talk about what that plan would look like to support you being at school. I will be honest with you, part of what we're doing to combat student attendance is recruiting some students to help with that. So at the high school, for example, you maybe, I don't know what leadership opportunities beyond this you do at the high school, but you might have already been tapped on to work with freshmen as their mentees, right? Your mentees, and talking to them about attendance and being on time and how to keep track of their own attendance. So a part of any plan is empowering the student to get back in school and get engaged and help them develop the habits of attending school. So I couldn't tell you exactly what we would do, but that's kind of the path we follow to figure out that plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one more. I know this is a lot. So what about students that like are at school and not showing up to their classes?
Yes.
Sorry.
I smile
I'm
a
just
little.
curious, sorry.
I smile a little bit because of my time as a dean and an EBD teacher. I knew some kids like that, right? Like,
Well, my own
I
kid
met a
did
lot
it
of
some.
kids.
Like, I'm just saying. Like, there's no.
So
Whatever.
I think really it comes down to what's better in the hallway? Like, why aren't you engaged in class? And really, when we talk about going to class, what will matter more to the student and make them buy in more is if we find that thing that's keeping them from class and figure that out. Of course, there are consequences. Of course, those things happen, and some of them are consequences we give to students, and some of them are natural. For example, your grades are lower when you're not in class, right? But what is that thing that's keeping you away? Like my example earlier, is it a misconnection with the teacher? Is it content that's too hard for you? Maybe you missed 3 days because you were sick, and you're too worried to ask to get back on track. So like, what is the reason? And I think if I could describe what I would expect, what we do with students in the hall is that we care about them and love them right back into that classroom, right? So how do we get them over there, walk them in, and find the thing that's keeping them from class? It's not perfect, but we definitely won't get them back in by sending them home, right? So how do we create that expectation and kind of wrap around them to fix whatever's getting in the way? Yes.
Anything else?
I should stop asking.
I should, you know, exactly. No, I do want to say, Hope, Erica, and Kayleen, Jeff, phenomenal work. You know, it always impresses me to hear of the great work that we're doing, and it's just, as Erica, as you said, when you do great work, you discover more work to do. So, and this is a perfect example. So, thank you. All right, moving on to superintendent report.
All right. Here we go. So just a few things. So, I think the entire board was able to make it to our kickoff. Us at our best this fall. And so we had opportunity with new staff. We had one of the highlights was obviously, having our students perform as well as MC at the kickoff. So that was a lot of fun. In the middle is honoring our 20 and 30 year staff who hit those milestones. So it was just a fun week, very successful week, and a lot of fun. First day of school, here's just some pictures that you can see from that first day of school. It was fun. I was able to get around to each of the schools and a number of times last week, and it's just been a great kickoff, as my daughter would say, a great vibe around the district. So it's very cool. So, all right. Panther Mentors welcomed our 9th graders and those new to the high school. So they led tours, helped follow fellow students. I saw some of the students. So part of that of getting kids to class, like I saw some kids and I saw some mentors inviting kids to get to class. So that was a good thing to see. So that was great. And there's a ton of mentors, so it's fun to see so many students getting involved with leadership. It's an important role for the school. There we go. And I mentioned this early, knowing each student by name, strength, interest, and needs. So it was also fun going around from the high school to the elementary schools, different ways that the teachers were getting to know kids that first week of school. We also had meet and greets at each one of our schools, so families also had a chance to meet teachers. But it was just a lot of fun to the different ways students were being welcomed to school. So there for a moment, so you'll be able to scan those pics. And then just some things coming up this Saturday, the Start Your Engines event. That's we'll be at the high school 11 to 1:30. So it was really successful. Last year was our first one. We'll be having it again this year. So there's a number of different big trucks, honking horns, and everything else. The kids get to come and see. Also some food trucks. So it's just a lot of fun. So I encourage people to come out to that. Also, we have tickets are now on sale for our fall play. I don't know, are any of our student board members in the fall play involved? No. All right, I'm sure you'll go and cheer them on, right? So, but Fine Arts Center, you can see at the end of October and early November when the performances will be, and they always do a wonderful job. And we also have already Saturday, October 7th is our first Live on 65 performance. So encourage people to look for that online and get involved with that. So that's it. One other thing I just wanted to update that's not on the slides. Amy had shared this information. I just wanted to make you aware. We've continued to meet with Ideal Energies around installing rooftop solar units. Again, we've shared with you previously, there's 3 sites that qualify for this: North Point, Centerview, and Westwood. We are eligible and applying for the Solar for Schools grant and are in that application phase right now. Submitting that application does not obligate us to anything like the expenses that come along with it and things like that. So as we move further along, we'll talk with the board further about that. But in case you happen to hear anything about us applying for that grant, I wanted to make you aware of it. So that is it. All right. That's all I got for you.
Thanks. Okay, moving on to action items. Can I get a motion for the resolution stating the intention of the school board to refund bonds?
So moved.
So moved by Hennon,
Second.
second by Villela. To approve the following resolution, be it resolved by the school board of Independent School District number 16, Anoka County, Minnesota, as follows. And I'm not going to read through everything because there's several paragraphs, but I'll just summarize it. On May 3rd, 2006, the district issued its general obligation school building bonds, Series 2006A, in the original aggregate principal amount of $45 million pursuant to Minnesota statutes, Chapter 475, and a special election held February 28th, 2006. The district is authorized by Section 475.67 to issue and sell its general obligation bonds to refund outstanding bonds when determined by the board to be necessary and desirable for the reduction of debt service costs of the district. And lastly, the board has retained Ellers and Associates to serve as the district's independent municipal advisor with, and then the board will meet at a time specified and consider proposals for the purchase of the bonds and take any appropriate action with respects to the bonds. Any discussion? Yeah, Amy Schultz, would you care to
Get a couple highlights.
add some additional information to that? Don't forget to push the mic. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
All right.
All right, so I'm not gonna read the rest of the resolution after that. So really what this is the board is approving a resolution in order to allow us to go out and solicit bids to basically refinance existing bonds. So the term is refunding for governmental units, very similar though to refinancing a home mortgage. Current rates are actually lower than when, for a couple of the coupons of the bond, than when we originally sold it back in this one, 2014, when we refunded the 2006. So while rates are a little higher now than they were a year ago, we have now hit the point that we can call these bonds and refinance them. So there is still an advantage to doing that. So as Dr. Ronenberg mentioned, this doesn't lock us into doing that. They will go, Ellers will solicit bids and bring them back next month for us to review. And at that point, the board would be taking action to approve. So if approved, then the bonds would actually close and sell in November. So
If I can just add, the whole point of us doing this is we save some money for our taxpayers. The
Right.
district doesn't save money, we do it for our taxpayers, so that is a great goal and why we're looking into it.
right, and we do this each time we have that ability to refinance and save money. And as Henry mentioned, any savings we receive goes directly back to taxpayers with principal and interest on that. The board did hear a longer presentation on this a couple weeks ago at the work session, so.
Any other discussion? Thanks, Amy.
All right,
Clerk, can you call roll?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Great. All right. Moving on to adopt proposed policy modifications. Can I get a motion?
Second.
So moved by Forsberg, second by Strobel, to approve the adoption of the following policies with proposed modifications. School Board Policy 208 states if a policy is modified with minor changes that do not affect the substance of the policy or because of legal change over which the school board has no control, the modified policy may be approved at one meeting at the discretion of the school board. And here we have a list of the different policies that will be modified. Any discussion?
Just gonna give Ralph the result of the first of the policies. We'll see the result of the legislative session last spring, so these are all just.
Have no control.
No control. Yeah. Yes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Acknowledgement of gifts. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Vivella, by Forsberg, to approve the following resolution. Whereas School Board Policy 706 establishes guidelines for the acceptance of gifts to the district, and whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 states that a school board may accept a gift of real or personal property by the adoption of a resolution approved by 2/3 of its members. Therefore, be it resolved that the school board of Spring Lake Park Schools accepts with appreciation the gifts as shown. Oh, it's not working? Okay. In our handout. Yeah. And the handout is a list of the gifts. So, any discussion? We'd like to say thank you to those who have generously donated to the district. Clerk, can you call roll?
Mr. Valella,
Yes.
Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Hannon,
Yes.
Ms. Forsberg, yes, Ms. Bo, Mr. Easter.
Yes.
That resolution is adopted on a 7-0 vote.
Thank you. Moving on to board forum and reports. I want to say welcome to our student representatives. We have, make sure I get the names right, Harper,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
and I know I'm gonna get it wrong. If you want to come up to the mic, it'd be great. Sure. I'm gonna attempt it.
It's gonna be Anyenye.
Yep. Oenye, right?
Anyenye.
Anenye.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna get this right. I want to say welcome. If each of you want to just introduce yourselves and then kind of give a
You go first.
brief update.
Actually, I think Aninia should go first.
I would love to. So as I said, my name is Anyenye and I'm a current senior at Spring Lake Park High School. I act as vice president of our student council and I'm involved in a variety of other things at the high school. I am the section leader of our wind ensemble, part of the superintendent student advisory committee that helps sort of create a more engaging and inclusive environment for our community members and our students here at Spring Lake Park. And yeah, I work in the community at the music school, actually, like across the street, called Spark School of Music. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Evan Jefferson. I am also a current senior here at Spring Lake Park. I'm a lifelong Panther. I come from a long lineage of people who have attended Spring Lake Park.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm proud to work in the historic Mill City District of downtown at the Dunn Brothers on 3rd Street and 2nd Avenue. I serve as the president of the student council this year, along with my trusty right-hand women, Anyenye and Harper. I previously was the treasurer of student council. I've been both the treasurer and president of the Family, Community, and Career Leaders of America, also known as FCCLA. I'm also a Proud Panther mentor. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Harper. I'm also a senior at the high school. In school, I'm captain of the swim team. I'm a Panther mentor. I am the PR secretary of student council, so I run the Instagram page. I'm trying to think of everything. I'm also an NHS. And then outside of school, I am a brand ambassador for a small clothing brand called Stay Another Day. They donate part of their profits to suicide awareness. I am a 3-year lifeguard at Booker Beach Water Park in Coon Rapids. And then I'm also part of the OEC program at the high school. So
Awesome.
I like to
So-
be busy.
I know, I was gonna ask, so when do each of you sleep? That's fantastic. Thank you for being a part of our board. Look forward to hearing updates from you each of our regular meetings. Other board members? Oh, yes. Do you have any reports? Sorry.
Yeah. So first off, we met with Wackman, the activities and athletics director, this morning. So the first thing is just the start of school. The Panther Mentors was the first club that every freshman is in, and we have about 90 mentors this year. The first day of school went really smoothly and everything went well. We had the pizza on the plaza at the first high school football game. We had really high attendance this year, which is really exciting. All the fall sports are in full swing, and the girls' soccer team is undefeated. They haven't even let a single goal in this year. The numbers are highest for every sport besides boys soccer, which is just down a teeny bit. Homecoming is October 6th, and then the high school is hosting the NWSC leadership meeting this Wednesday, so tomorrow, all day. Theater just held their auditions for Letters to Sala, and then water polo.
Shout out to Dr. Romaker, the coach. Hey, Doc.
Has a really good turnout this year, which is really exciting because it was just started last year. And then the Opportunities and Emergency Care Program is helping to run the Twin City Marathon on October 1st this year.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's it.
Great.
I can also say that our wind ensemble and our showcase concert for the entirety of our music program, or at least our band program, is being held on October 2nd. The theme this year, we are sort of hosting sort of a children's theme. One of the songs that the wind ensemble is playing or is performing is an ode to children, and fifth graders are gonna come in, and they're gonna listen to what we're gonna play, and it's gonna be a really exciting opportunity.
And student council is in full swing this year as well. We are planning a homecoming, so yeah, just be prepared for the best year ever.
I love it.
And that is not a hyperbole.
I'm really excited
I am
for
too.
the year.
I'm nervous.
We're excited he's nervous. So you're doing something great. Awesome. Thanks for the updates. Oh, that's great. Board members, any updates? I know, right?
I went to Woodcrest, the Spanish immersion elementary, last night for their PTO meeting, and I was kind of blown away because this is not like the PTO meetings I've been doing in the past. They applied a bunch of people there. There was like, the whole, went over there, the whole cafeteria was full of people. It was like close to 50 people. I was like, wow. I guess they had dinner to get some people there. They had childcare for the parents to watch the kids so they could be in attendance. And then they had raffles where they raffled away Panther gear. And the way you got the raffle tickets was like their Facebook page. You got raffle tickets, so it was great. And I'm still like blown away. They have there's like 12 committee chairs who did their PTO. I mean, I had to write all this down. They have a literacy committee. They have an equity inclusion committee that's new. They have a Wednesday volunteer committee, a winter family fun night committee, indoor outdoor recess bin committee, a mileage club committee, social and emotional committee, staff appreciation committee, a grant committee, community service committee, an birthday bulletin board committee, committee for lost and found. That's a big thing at elementary school.
Yes, it is.
I know that from experience.
Yes.
A green team environmental committee, an art adventure committee. I mean, I was just like, wow. I feel so old. It wasn't like that when I was there. It's really changed. So, I mean, it's fantastic. So, really cool. And everyone has a lot of energy. The one last thing I'll share is, they said in the first week, 25 different people spent over 45 hours volunteering at the elementary school just in the first week. Setting up for success.
I also attended a PTO meeting last night. I was at North Point. Ms. Peterson was also there. She did a fantastic job talking about the Panther Foundation and all the great things they do.
Great kickoff. It was really fun to see Tyler there. He did a great job. The one thing I was going to mention, because I thought it was a good idea, and this might be happening in other schools as well, but they're doing their specialists on a week basis this year. So if you have science specialists, you have it for 5 days in a row. If you have art, you have it for 5 days in a row. And the idea is if you're starting, and it makes total sense, right? You're starting a project, it's a lot easier to come back Tuesday and keep doing the experiment or the project than to wait 5 days and go back to it. So I thought that was a great idea and something new that I hadn't heard about before. So I want to share that. But they're up to a great start as well and have a fun run coming up and all that good stuff. So that's it. Yeah.
Thanks. Marilyn?
I brought some maps. I don't know if I have enough of the 916 districts since I talk about that. I have absolutely no explanation why there are different colors for different districts, so we'll just have to live with that. The 916 adopted some policies as we're doing here. They recognized a retirement of a person for 30 years. She was invited to the board meeting. The enrollment has increased by 447 students this year. And I think part of that is due to that we have additional staff. I can't give you the breakdown of what's special ed, what's alternative learning, or what's career and tech. And we signed 2 joint powers agreement, one with Century College, so students can be getting dual credits, and one from the city of North St. Paul to build a house there for next year. And approve a pay scale for retirees who come back to teach. MSBA is having their virtual advocacy tours. The first one was tonight, and they will go tomorrow night, Thursday night, and Friday morning. And it's an opportunity to see what districts are having concerns about for the legislature in the coming session. Delegate assembly, we must not have had any competition because I've been notified I can go. Were either of you at AMSD?
I was there. Yeah. I was online.
I'll let you talk about that then.
You can go ahead and touch on that if you'd like.
I'll go on and talk a little bit about SROs and the controversy. I was invited to a church group to talk to them, and that was the topic. So I used the opportunity to educate a little bit about how school districts function, because this group had the impression that the school districts were the ones who were not having the SROs come back, when in fact it is the cities. And I thought that was quite interesting in that a lot of people really don't have a good understanding of how school districts function. So there's a few ladies that have a little insight now.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Anything else, Martin?
Well, I think that's enough.
I did attend online the AMSD meeting on Friday. Very enlightening. They did touch on the SRO. That's a hot topic amongst the school districts and
Does everyone know what
cities.
SRO is?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, there was a number of acronyms that were just kind of thrown
Yeah.
around there. So AMSD is the Association of Metropolitan School Districts. They represent 41 districts in basically the kind of the 7-county metro area, plus Duluth, Rochester is involved with that organization. SROs are our school resource officers. So, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's some discussion around that. Some additional information shared, and as we all know, there's not going to be a special session around that. But there's still some discussions happening. Yeah. But there's still some discussions happening, and they did provide some additional insight on that. But I found what was really interesting is they had completed a survey, and I believe they do this. Is it every year? Yeah, they did the survey. It was interesting to see the results of the survey and how really what's on the top of mind of a lot of parents and those who completed the surveys regarding schools. So it would be a lot to cover and share. I would just recommend that if everyone has the opportunity to go ahead and view the link if it's, I think it's out there.
It's available on the
It's
MSD.
available. Okay, yeah, go ahead and take a look at it. It's very informative. Yeah, that's about all I can add to that.
It's interesting to me, back to the SRO topic, that, a survey was done, and I think it was 225 schools out of the 380-some in the state. But of those 225, 62%, I believe, had SROs. And of that 62%, 68% of the cities were discontinuing their
Right.
support. So it seemed to me probably half of them were not.
Since this has been mentioned and somebody might be watching, I just want to provide some clarity around the issue. So, there were some changes in the legislature in Allow last spring. That brought some concerns for cities across the state and for law enforcement. So recently, the city of Spring Lake Park decided to cancel our school resource officer beginning September 21st. So we do have an officer at the site through September 21st. His name's Aaron Imig. He does a great job. Our liaison officers prior to Aaron have done a great job. We have a great relationship with the city of Spring Lake Park, with Josh, the police chief. This is not a case of where the school district has decided to cancel that liaison officer. It's a decision that they made due to some of the limitations that were put on actions that officers can take in schools due to that legislative change. So our hope is that issue will be able to get resolved, and because we're looking forward to having Aaron back in school. In the meantime, though, the city is working closely with us so that we'll still have support from the city. And they're still going to be providing support at events such as football games and everything else. So we do have a great relationship that will continue, and this will get resolved soon, I'm sure. So.
Yes. Thanks, Jeff. Other board forum, other updates?
So recently, as we know, the school year started, I would just like to, give a shout out to Spring Lake Park High School specifically, and even school board, for our integration of post-secondary classes inside the high school. I would just like to say that I'm very much impressed by the amount that we've offered this year, and the teachers are well trained in what they're doing. And I really do appreciate how in-depth the content has gotten this far. So yeah, I just want to say thank you guys so much, because I really do enjoy those classes, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people do as well.
Awesome. Thanks. That makes our day.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we want to hear. Yes.
We weren't sure where that was going.
Right, yeah. But thank you. No, it has taken a lot of work to develop that program, and it's awesome to hear that students are enjoying it and taking advantage of it. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Should we move to adjourn? Can I get a motion? So, motion by Hennon, second by, was it Forsberg? Yeah. Forsberg? To adjourn the meeting at 8:23. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.